We good? All right, we're starting the recording. Hello, everybody. My name is Thomas Wayne Timbrooks. That's what the W stands for, Thomas W. Timbrooks, and I am running for, I'm on the Republican ticket for Oregon's 6th Congressional District for United States House of Representatives. My whole thing there is I want to create jobs for Oregon. More jobs for Oregon means less dependence on government welfare. Very important idea there, very important. We want the least amount of government interference in our business as we could possibly get. Government welfare, it's not a sustainable thing, okay? So we want jobs for Oregon. I can get us jobs. I'm a manufacturing engineer. I've been doing it for like 35 years, so I know I can get jobs for Oregon, okay? So yeah, this is me, Republican Party, Congressional District 6. A lot of people don't know what a congressional district is. There are a finite number of seats in the United States House of Representatives. Basically, we take the population of the United States and we divide it by the number of seats available in the House of Representatives, and we come up with a number. That's the number of people, and each group of people, of that many people, then gets one representative for the House of Representatives. Okay, I believe the number now is like 715,000. So if you have a state that has just above, well, anywhere from 0 to 715,000 people, you have one congressional representative. And I think from that to, you have to have an additional 715,000 or you don't get another one or something. I'm not exactly certain of those rules, but that's what happens. So let's say you live in a state like Oregon where we have enough people for 6 congressional districts, okay? We have 6 times 715,000 people, okay? So we have that many people, we have 6 congressional districts, all right? And each congressional district is divided up the way the state, according to the state's laws. Every state is allowed to decide for itself how the districts are divided up, okay? And as of 2022, the state of Oregon has had 6 congressional districts. Before that, it was 5, so we had more people move in here. I was actually one of those people who moved to Oregon and helped to create the 6th congressional district, and I actually moved into the area that would become the 6th congressional district. So, hey, you're welcome, Oregon. I'm here, you know. So anyways, so I am running for House of Representatives, the United States Congress House of Representatives. The reason I say that is because the state of Oregon actually has a government which has a House of Representatives and a Senate. So I have to say United States House of Representatives because those are the people in Washington, D.C. Okay, if you're an Oregonian and you vote for somebody, you say, hey, I'm going to vote for this person is my senator, that could be a state senator or a United States senator. You have to check on that, okay? And same thing with the House of Representatives in the state of Oregon. You could be voting for a state representative or a federal United States House of Representatives, okay? So yeah, we get 6 representatives in the United States Congress House of Representatives. I don't remember the number of representatives we have in the Oregon State Congress. I know it's a bunch. My representative is Lucetta Elmer, really nice person. I talked with her last week. We had a fundraiser. There's a lot of fundraisers going on. Politics is really an expensive thing. It's too expensive. I have been told that I have to spend at least $3 million in order to get the seat, and I'm not going to do that. I mean, if I had $3 million, I would probably be living in a state where like New Mexico or, well, actually, no, I would still be living in Oregon. I would have $3 million, so I wouldn't care about the government. I would be saying, yeah, the government kind of sucks, but I got $3 million. You know, if you have $3 million, it really, it buys a lot of just, how do I want to say it? Happiness. It does buy happiness. Money buys happiness, okay? Money buys the things that make you happy. Money makes you feel secure. You can get yourself a nice house with like 10 acres, do absolutely nothing with the acreage, just let the trees grow, let the Oregon come into your property and just be a natural Oregon thing. And you could just be in your house with a pile of money big enough that if you fell off of it, you would break both of your legs. You know, that's what it means. To me, that's what having $3 million means. I've got a pile of money in my living room that's big enough. If I fell off of it, I would break both my legs. Okay, that's what it means to me. I don't know what it means to everybody else. But yeah, I don't have $3 million, $5 million, $10 million to spend on a political campaign to become the representative, one of the representatives for the state of Oregon. So I'm putting myself out there. I'm telling the people, I'm on this YouTube channel, telling the people of Oregon, look, if you vote for me, I will represent you. I will do these things for you. This is my plan. These are my objectives. This is the way I'm going to do it. Okay. So yeah, basically that's my whole thing. And I hope you vote for me. Everybody I've ever talked to says, yeah, you don't have a chance. And I joined the Marine Corps. When I joined the Marine Corps, everybody I talked to said, oh, you don't have a chance. There's no way you're not good enough to be in the Marine Corps. But hey, I went through. I became a Marine. 4 years later, I got out, honorary discharge, no big deal. So yeah, I'm hoping that you'll elect me to go to Washington, D.C., represent the state of Oregon. And so let's get on with my little slideshow here, okay? So first of all, I want to talk about the things that have happened recently that I don't care about, okay? Number one, Taylor Swift is engaged. I don't care, okay? I don't care that Taylor Swift is engaged. Congratulations. I wish them very well. I hope they're happy for eternity. I hope they have many children and wealth and prosperity, but I don't care, okay? Cracker Barrel has changed the logo from one to the other. I don't care. I really don't care. I do not care. I don't see why anybody cares. And from what I understand, people are really upset about it, and the company lost $100 million in stockholder value and stuff. And I don't understand why anybody cares. I don't care. You shouldn't care. All right. So yeah, that's something that's happened recently that I don't care about, and I don't understand why anybody does care about. Okay. So let's see. Sydney Sweeney has posed in a very sexy way for Eagle jeans. Okay. I don't care. I'm not offended by it. It has no effect on me one way or another. I am not going to purchase these jeans and think to myself, hey, now Sydney Sweeney will date me. I mean, first of all, I'm 61 years old. I don't want to date Sydney Sweeney. If I do go out with somebody, I want, somebody who, I can sit on the couch with and we can watch a movie, and then, she's not going to get upset that I drift off and take a nap, I get the feeling that Sydney Sweeney would be like, oh, he's taking a nap again, dating 61-year-old men. And so, yeah, Sydney Sweeney, beautiful lady, and apparently it's a very successful ad campaign. I don't care. I don't understand why anybody does care. All right, so just that don't care about it. All right, So those are things that have happened recently that I don't care about, okay? So today I want to talk about the defunding of NPR and PBS. Now this is something that I do care about, and you should care about it too as an American citizen, because I mean, we grew up on PBS and NPR. You know, mom and dad would listen to NPR on the way to the grocery store or whatever. You'd be sitting there listening to the news or opinions or ideas, and you know, that's great. You grew up on Sesame Street, the Electric Company. PBS, the one thing that PBS was really good for is the fact that they didn't have to censor themselves. You know, they didn't have to worry about all these censorship codes and violations that the networks did, because they were supported by public funds. Public funding supported PBS and NPR, so we could hear an unbiased truth. We could hear an unbiased opinion. You know, this is the way it happens. And we know because it's PBS, and so the source is really, you know, we don't really question the source, because, you know, PBS is supposedly held to a higher standard because they aren't funded by corporations. Okay, they're funded by the government, our government. We fund PBS, so we presume that everything PBS gives us is an unbiased, absolute truth, because they don't need to play these games, these corporate games. They don't need to, you know, suck up to any billionaires, because it's PBS. You know, this is the people's television. It's NPR. That's the people's radio, right? So anyway, Donald Trump has recently gone ahead and defunded PBS and NPR because of reasons, and that's what I'm going to go over here. All right. Now, so am I pro or against it? Well, let's look at the whole ideas here. Okay. Pellegrino water with a little bit of lime. It's good stuff. Keeps my vocal cords moist, and that's good. So defunding PBS and NPR. The First Amendment prohibits the government from restricting speech, okay? It doesn't require the government to fund all forms of speech. Okay, that's the legal distinction. So the government cannot pass any law that restricts any speech. Okay, it cannot say, hey, you can't say that around here or something like that. But it is not the government's charter to fund PBS or NPR. So it's not actually a government requirement. PBS and NPR were just sort of something, I guess, nice that some political officials came out and did. When they made the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, they came out and said, okay, well, you know what? If we're going to have all these people saying all these things, we have to have some kind of regulations, because we can't just have anybody out there saying anything they want anytime they want, because people will become paranoid. You could have people on there like War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds was a radio show, and people freaked out and they started shooting at each other, and all kinds of crazy dumb stuff happened. That's irresponsible reporting. So the FCC, one of the things that the FCC does is like, okay, look, none of this irresponsible reporting, none of the stupid childish behavior, no pornography, no nudity, no foul language, no this, that, and the other. So anything that goes on the airways that people listen to or watch, they're subjected to the rules of the FCC. Okay, and this is because it had to happen, because people were being very irresponsible and dumb, and so the FCC came out with this stuff. And so one of the things that the FCC decided, I suppose, is we will have a public broadcasting system. NPR, National Public Radio, and Public Broadcasting System, those are two things that were funded by the government, but it is not a constitutional requirement that the government fund these things. It's just part of the FCC saying that the American consumer is entitled to an unbiased form of media, and NPR and PBS are unbiased. They don't have advertisements. They are funded entirely by you and me, donations from people. So that's the story about those guys. So now, if we make a spirit of the law argument, when the government chooses to fund a platform like PBS or NPR that favors one side of the political spectrum, it can amount to an indirect suppression of other voices because taxpayer dollars end up amplifying one ideology while ignoring others. Okay, and what is meant there? This is what Donald Trump is talking about. He's saying PBS and NPR are left-leaning. They are very pro-Democrat. They are very anti-Republican. Okay, and so because NPR and PBS appear to be biased in the left direction, in the liberal Democrat direction, they appear to be biased that way. This gives Democrats an unfair advantage in being able to shape the narrative. And that's unfair to the consumer. It's unfair to the citizen, because if you have one group of people who shape the narrative towards the liberal Democrat side, then you don't hear the conservative Republican side. And that's unfair to you. That's unfair to me. It's unfair to the people who watch television, which is everybody in America. Everybody needs fair and unbiased reporting. We need fair and unbiased representation of all of the candidates. Everybody who has any political voice at all has to be allowed to share their opinion. Okay, now if PBS and NPR only show half of the story, then that is biased, and it's preventing the conservative Republicans from actually voicing their opinions or getting their narrative across, or our narrative across, because I'm a conservative Republican. And because I can't get my narrative across, the government can't pay for that because it is indirectly suppressing my opinions. It is indirectly violating my First Amendment rights. Okay, by not allowing the conservative Republican opinion on PBS or NPR, the spirit of the First Amendment is being violated. Okay, so this is why Donald Trump has decided to defund PBS and NPR. Okay, so another way you could look at it, I was talking to this friend of mine who works at the bar in town, Blue Moon. Real nice person, real nice lady. And she's very much against defunding PBS, and I wanted to give it a listen. As she said, well, basically, what Donald Trump is doing is silencing the opposition. And I didn't want to say it to her at the time. I didn't really want to get into an argument with her because she's a very nice person. I like her. And she was making my drink. So, I was having a coffee, a Moroccan coffee. It's got a little bit of alcohol in it. I sometimes daytime drink. It's no big deal. See, if she's saying, well, Donald Trump is silencing the opposition by defunding PBS and NPR, well, then she is recognizing NPR and PBS as the opposition, which kind of proves my point. If NPR and PBS are opposing the conservative Republican ideology, well, then it sort of proves my point that, or Donald Trump's point that they should be defunded. Okay, so if the only opinion they have is the opposing opinion, then they are indirectly violating the spirit of the First Amendment. So, PBS and NPR probably should be defunded from that perspective. Another alternative would be to require PBS and NPR to have a conservative point of view. That would probably be better for the consumer, but we'll see how it all plays out. Okay, so direct versus indirect free speech. Direct restriction would be Congress outlawing Republican speech, and that's unconstitutional. Indirect restriction comes when public money is used to subsidize one perspective while refusing to provide balance. The result can be a tilted public square where one side is always louder. And that's what I was just talking about, is that PBS has a reputation for presenting stories with a progressive or liberal framing. Even if they deny partnership, the lack of balance means conservatives see their position misrepresented or dismissed. And since PBS is partially taxpayer funded, conservatives argue this amounts to government underwriting or underwriting of free speech against them. And that's what I'm talking about is because the Republicans, conservatives are not represented, then it is bias against the Republicans. It's bias against us, and it's not letting us talk, which is a violation of the First Amendment. And so the government cannot fund PBS and NPR if they're only going to tell one side of the story. Okay, so the Trump administration's defunding decision, that Trump administration's proposed budgets frequently include elimination or heavy reduction of funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which supports PBS and NPR. The rationale given was twofold: fiscal responsibility. Why fund something that can sustain itself through donations and private sponsors? And ideological fairness. Why should taxpayers fund content that skews against a large portion of those very taxpayers? And that's me. My tax dollars are going to pay for PBS and NPR. I am a conservative Republican. If my voice is being denied, why am I paying? Why are my tax dollars going to pay for something that denies me representation? And that's really frustrating to somebody like me, because I would like to have my voice represented. I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm running for Congress, is I don't think that there's enough conservative representation in Oregon. Oregon is about 50% conservative, and 5 out of the 6 congressional districts are Democrat. We should have 3 out of the 6. It just kind of makes sense. So we're not being properly represented, and I think that's something that should stop. And it's not going to stop as long as only one side of the story is ever told. If you never hear the conservative side, if you never hear the Republican side, then Republicans are going to be underrepresented, and at almost half, like 50% of the population, we really shouldn't be underrepresented. We should be represented properly, because 50% of the people in the state our taxes are going to pay for everything that happens in the state, right? So, I mean, that's taxation without representation, which is basically the reason we fought the American Revolution. So, I mean, there you go, right? Okay, so anyways, why defund? PBS is funded through taxpayer dollars via the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, along with private donations. I just said that, I know, but I want to drill it in. The big question: is it fair for government to use taxpayer money to support a media outlet with an obvious political bias? And that's what I was saying, is that no, it really isn't. It's not fair for me, and it's not fair for Democrats either. Because let's say you're a Democrat and you are being given half of the story, then you can't really make an informed decision. And the conservative point of view, the conservative voice, might be a very important voice to you. You know, the Republicans may have something very important for you to understand, but because the Democrats are preventing that from information from getting to you, you can't make an informed decision. And if you can't make an informed decision, you might make a very bad decision, and it might come back to hurt you. So really, my tax dollars, your tax dollars, everybody's tax dollars should be used. We should know that whatever we're doing is not going to cause a bias in either direction. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about there. Okay, so the First Amendment distinction, the spirit of the First Amendment is neutrality. Government should not amplify one side while ignoring the other. The First Amendment prevents the government from restricting speech, but it doesn't require the government to fund it. Okay, and so if the government is funding the restriction of speech, then the government is violating the spirit of the First Amendment. So when the government funds only one perspective, it tips the scales of public debate. PBS has a long-standing reputation for leaning left in its coverage and commentary. Many conservatives feel their views are misrepresented or dismissed, yet taxpayers from across the political spectrum foot the bill. So the Trump administration's rationale is fiscal responsibility. In the age of streaming, PBS can survive on private donations and sponsorships. Why rely on taxpayer support? In ideological fairness, why should taxpayers fund a network that consistently criticizes a large portion of those very taxpayers? All right. And the bigger question, should government be funding media at all? True independence in journalism comes from being free of government influence, financial or otherwise. And when the state funds media, neutrality becomes compromised, or at least appears compromised. Okay, so yeah, if the state funds any kind of media, I mean, let's say the media, let's say the news wants to run a story where Donald Trump is a bad guy. Well, Donald Trump's going to say, hey, that media is against me, therefore I'm going to defund it. Okay, well, what if the media says, hey, Donald Trump is a great guy. Look at how wonderful and amazing Donald Trump is. Well, Donald Trump is going to say, hey, that's great. Let's get all kinds of funding for that station. Well, the Democrats are going to come by and say, wait a minute, that's biased against us, so let's not fund this. So see, so it shouldn't be funded at all because it provides some kind of bias by denying an opportunity from one side or the other to get their point across. Okay, so I mean, you're talking about it. It's kind of like a propaganda machine. You know, we don't want a government-funded propaganda machine to exist. That's kind of like what Hitler did during World War II. That's what dictators do all over the world. Is they get their government to finance their propaganda machine, and we don't want that to happen in America. We like people having their own opinions. We like to hear both sides of the story. So you know, in America, we don't need a propaganda machine. We don't need a government-supported propaganda machine. Donald Trump is getting rid of PBS because what is being said on PBS goes against conservative Republicans. But if it went in favor of conservative Republicans, I would want PBS off also. I would want to take government funding away from PBS also, because it is still supporting one narrative over the other. And we really have to have both sides of the story, both narratives, in order to make an informed decision. Okay, so that's what I'm going for there. Now, the fairness test. Imagine if taxpayer money went to a pro-Trump network. The outcry from the left would be immediate, calling it propaganda. If it's wrong in one direction, it's also wrong in the other. And I agree with that completely. Now, it's not just political bias either, it's economic bias, okay? PBS doesn't only lean left politically, it often portrays American corporations as villains while downplaying the downsides of foreign competitors. And this creates a subtle but powerful narrative where America is greedy and exploitive, while China is efficient and affordable. And that's not only misleading, it's harmful to the American workers. Now, I remember I was watching the PBS NewsHour one time, and this is several years ago. Judy Woodruff, who I respect as a journalist, she's been on the PBS NewsHour for a long time, she once suggested that goods from China are exactly the same as American-made goods, but just cheaper. Well, this statement ignores decades of real-world evidence, and what looks the same on the shelf may be diminished in quality, durability, or safety. It isn't and apples to apples comparisons, it's cost cutting at the consumer's expense. And here's what I'm talking about there. Oh yeah, I had the slide. Something called quality creep, okay? Now quality creep is stuff that you can't really check on, or you don't check on. It's what the producer knows the producer can get away with. And in this case, back a long time ago when I was a kid, if you got a bottle of shampoo, you unscrew the top and you look and boom, the shampoo was filled up to about this far from the top, okay? Well, they started making shampoo in China. And now if you look at that same bottle, it's all the way down here. Okay, you will not find a bottle that has been filled up to here. And this is called quality creep. Okay, quality. The quality triangle looks like this. You have a big Q for quality, and you have the triangle, three sides. You have scope, you have cost, and you have time. Okay? The way corporations increase their profitability is by reducing the period of time or reducing the internal cost. Okay? The scope of the actual amount of whatever should remain the same. But if you can get away with diminishing the scope, like if instead of delivering 100, you can get away with delivering 95 or 90, okay, then you save money that way also. And what happened in China with the shampoo and body wash thing, the bottles that your body wash and shampoo come in, they're made out of something called rosin. Rosin is sort of a plasticky stuff. It's a liquid. You inject it into a mold. You subject that mold to extreme heat. The rosin solidifies, but you can still squeeze it, okay? Now, in order to make a bottle, the people who manufacture bottles know that you require a certain amount of rosin. Well, if you diminish that amount of rosin by 5%, what that means is you have extra to make other bottles. So you can make more bottles of shampoo, more shampoo bottles. And then if you come along and you diminish the amount of shampoo or body wash that's in the bottle by 5%, well, then you can fill up those extra bottles. So what's happening in China is called quality creep because it's a diminished amount of finished goods that you're getting. You are paying for a full bottle of shampoo, a full bottle of body wash, but you might only be getting 90% of what is listed. Like, let's say it says 200 milliliters of body wash in this. Have you ever checked? Have you ever checked exactly how many milliliters of body wash or shampoo you're getting? You haven't. Nobody has. I've never done it. You've never done it. Nobody does that. Why would they? It says 200 milliliters. You assume it's 200 milliliters, right? But what if it's not? Do you know? You don't know. And they found out that this was happening in China, and that what the Chinese companies were doing is, let's say they make 1 million bottles of shampoo, and they use 95% of the rosin to make the bottles. They keep 5% over here. They use 95% of the shampoo. They keep the other 5% over here. And what they do, they have all of these bottles of shampoo and body wash that can be sold on the black market in China, because the American corporations are paying for the bottles and the shampoo and the body wash, and China is getting all of these bottles for free. So it's free to them. They can sell it for whatever price they want. So you see, that is quality creep. And when somebody like Judy Woodruff comes along and says, well, it's exactly the same, just cheaper, it's not exactly the same, but it is cheaper, okay? Now, I worked at a company in Austin, Texas called Applied Materials. We manufactured equipment that goes into factories like Intel, and these factories manufacture semiconductor stuff, microprocessors and stuff like that, right? We always had stuff from machine shops in America. And this stuff that we would get in, it worked perfectly every time. There was no problem with it. Then we started getting stuff in from China, and our failure rate went up dramatically. See, and so what we're getting from China is not exactly the same, but cheaper. It's not the same, but it's much cheaper. So the quality creep is a big problem with American manufacturing. And when people like Judy Woodruff on PBS come through with their bias and say it's exactly the same, only cheaper, just because American manufacturers can't make it that cheaply, it doesn't mean it's garbage. Actually, it is garbage. It's garbage, and it has to be dealt with as garbage. We are getting garbage from them, quality creep. And this is one of the problems I have with the bias on PBS, the NewsHour, is that their bias makes America look bad and China look good, when it should be just the opposite. Okay, and in fact, they really shouldn't have a bias at all. They should perform their due diligence and see that there is a difference, and that difference is a very important difference. Okay, and this is what I'm calling about negative quality creep. We've talked about before negative quality creep, where producers shave quality in subtle ways to maintain profit margins. Well, the bottle of shampoo filled with less products so the company can skim and resell the difference. Consumers may pay a lower price, but they get less value and shorter lasting goods. In the long run, this erodes trust and weakens the marketplace. PBS's position on China: by portraying Chinese goods as just as good but cheaper, PBS indirectly legitimizes outsourcing and job losses. The reality is that Chinese competitive edge often comes from cutting corners on quality and on labor standards and on environmental safeguards. American jobs and communities are sacrificed when this narrative goes unchallenged. And you see, that is my problem, is that because it's PBS, we don't challenge them. I mean, these are the people who brought us Sesame Street and the electric company. Morgan Freeman was on the electric company. Who's going to say bad things about Mr. Hooper? I mean, come on, Ernie and Bert. Oscar the Grouch was even awesome. Man, I loved Oscar the Grouch. He was a great guy. And you're gonna say something bad about PBS? No, I can't believe that. Well, believe it. PBS leans to one direction. They have biases. They don't perform their due diligence. Essentially, you get what you pay for. And since PBS is not funded by any corporations, they don't have advertisements like that, they really we really don't check on them. We think that they're holding themselves to a better standard, and they aren't. So these biases that PBS show can actually erode the confidence that Americans have in the system that we've created. Okay, and that is, I think, what Donald Trump is saying indirectly. But okay, impact of the American consumer. The average consumer thinks they're getting a bargain, but they're actually paying more in hidden costs, with lower durability equals more replacements, more expensive, safety issues, recalls and hazards. And that happened with dog food a while back. Job losses, weaker local economies, and lower wages. I mean, everybody's talking about higher minimum wages for food workers at McDonald's. Well, what we really should be talking about is bringing factories back to America so we don't have to work at McDonald's when you're like 45, 50 years old. So while PBS paints corporations as greedy, they fail to expose how foreign competitors exploit loopholes and undercut American workers. This is what to be considered here. This is my to be considered. This debate isn't about silencing PBS and NPR. It's about fairness and balance. Either fund all perspectives equally or leave it to citizens to choose with their wallets. And that means citizens can watch TV shows, movie, whatever that are paid for by advertising. PBS and NPR's economic and political biases are obvious, and by glamorizing cheap imports, it encourages a race to the bottom in quality and labor standards. The real tragedy is that the taxpayer dollars help fund a narrative that undermines American workers, American corporations, and American innovation. The big question is, does government funding of media inevitably create bias, even if unintentionally? So my closing statement here, okay, so let me get back on here. So yes, bias is created. And the reason is, with PBS, the people at PBS are not paid as well as ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox. Those people get millions of dollars. They get lots and lots and lots of money. To work at PBS is to accept that you are not going to get paid a lot of money, because you're not going to have the backing of the big advertisers, the big advertising agencies, the people with the big companies. They may donate to PBS, but those donations actually come at a cost. Let's say a big company, Corporation Incorporated. Okay, Corporation Incorporated is going to give $1 billion to PBS, and PBS is very happy about that because now they've got all kinds of broadcasting that they could do. And then PBS says, hey, Corporation Incorporated is doing this list of felonies. We've got a list of 24 felonies that Corporation Incorporated is doing, and all of these felonies, any one of them could shut down Corporation Incorporated. What do? Well, Corporation Incorporated is paying PBS so I mean, we really can't run a story against Corporation Incorporated, can we? So yeah, to work at PBS is to understand that you're not with the network. You're not going to get paid a lot of money. So what PBS people want more than anything is to be more successful in the monetary way. Okay. If Judy Woodruff were offered $50 million to work at ABC, I'm sure she would. But she's got the PBS NewsHour and everything. So yeah, this is kind of a problem with government-funded media like this. And I think AI could help out because, well, AI, you don't have to pay the AI people. That they just, you get the animated stuff and everything. But anyways, yeah, so getting back to the slides here. Bias doesn't always come from outright partnership. or partisanship, I'm sorry. Bias doesn't always come from outright partisanship. Sometimes it comes from failing to ask the hard questions, from failing to investigate thoroughly, or from accepting convenient narratives without challenge. If PBS isn't performing its due diligence, then it can't be unbiased. A media source funded by the government must be held to the highest possible standard for both due diligence and lack of bias. Anything less betrays the trust of the American taxpayers and undermines the very principle of a free and fair press. Okay, so I hate the fact that Donald Trump and his administration are getting rid of PBS, because I love Nova, I love Frontline, I love the NewsHour, I love the programming that PBS puts out. You know, the Day Tripper and all these other things. Oh man, there are so many shows on PBS about beautiful places to explore in Oregon. And it's a terrific thing to watch. I love watching PBS because of all of the artsy hippie stuff that PBS puts on. And I hate the fact that Donald Trump has got a really good point here in his reasons to defund PBS and NPR. So I don't know, man. I agree with what Donald Trump is saying. Because PBS and NPR have a biased opinion, and because that biased opinion is denying conservatives their right to their freedom of expression, their right to express their point of view, it is a violation of the First Amendment. It's a violation of the spirit of the First Amendment, if not a violation of the literal First Amendment. So by funding it, the government is violating its requirements to provide a fair form of freedom of speech for everybody. So yes, NPR, PBS should be defunded because they can't be fair to the conservative point of view. Okay, so I'm sorry about that, but that's just the way it is. Okay, now let's talk about guns. I want to talk about guns. I like guns. I'm not a super gun enthusiast and everything, and I do realize that there's gun violence in America. There has been and will be gun violence in America. Most of that gun violence, we don't want to talk about it. Democrats don't want to say this, but most of that gun violence in America is Democrats shooting at Democrats or Democrats shooting at Republicans. Okay, so if Democrats would stop shooting, 90% of the gun violence in America would go away. So if, let's say, Rosie O'Donnell just did this thing where she said, hey, in this week of September, stop purchasing things. Just stop purchasing stuff, okay? Well, let me make a counter suggestion, Rosie. If for 1 week, Democrats stop shooting, okay? If Democrats stop shooting for 1 week, just put your gun down and don't shoot anybody. For 1 week, we will watch the crime rate drop significantly. The murder rate in the United States will drop significantly. And then you'll have a 1 week period where you can blame Republicans for all of the murders, okay? So that's my suggestion there. Now the guns I want to talk about, this is the Henry. It is a .22 caliber long rifle, lever action gun, okay? It's a rifle. I own one of these, and it's a really nice rifle. And the reason I like it is because it's lever action. Now with the .22 caliber cartridge, it's not a very powerful cartridge. So when you have a lever action, your rifle, you're getting all of the power out of the cartridge. Whenever the powder goes off, you're getting all of the power out of the cartridge. Now the inconvenient thing here, you'll see there's a little notch on the bottom tube there. What you have to do, every time you shoot all of the bullets that are in the rifle, you have to put the rifle down, you have to pull a little rod out of that tube, you have to drop more bullets in and then replace the rod and start shooting again. It's not terribly inconvenient because this isn't like a combat scenario or anything like that. You know, we don't have the people coming through the barbed wire. We don't have commies rushing the gate or anything like that. But anyway, this is an exceptionally well-built, exceptional rifle. If you want a .22 caliber lever action rifle and you don't mind pulling the little rod out of the tube periodically to reload, this is an excellent rifle for you. I have one and it's a good rifle. This right here is the Ruger 1022, and it is also a lever action, but it's a magazine fed thing. You have a little magazine, a 10-round magazine that pops into the bottom, and it's a lever action rifle. So you get all of the power that the .22 caliber cartridge has, so you get all of the range that the .22 caliber rifle can provide. Now, the problem with this is Ruger no longer manufactures these. So you can't actually get a lever action Ruger 1022. All right, so if you like the magazine fed and you need a lever action rifle like me, this is the rifle that you get. Okay, this is from Rock Island Armory. And I believe they're out of Turkey. This is a .22 caliber rifle. Now you've got a little tube underneath the barrel there. It has absolutely no function. I don't even know why they put it in there. I don't think they know either. But yeah, it's got a little tube there. It has no function, but it has a barrel. And you see it has a magazine and it has a lever action. So this is a lever action magazine fed rifle. And it's exceptionally good. I own one of these, and I wish I owned a Ruger 1022 lever action also, but like I said, they stopped manufacturing them. So if it is important to you to have a lever action .22 caliber rifle, like it is to me, and if it's important to you to have a magazine fed lever action rifle, then this is a good rifle for you. Okay, now the problem with this rifle that I have found is it doesn't seem to be exceptionally well machined. The .22 caliber, the Ruger 1022 and the Henry lever action .22 are exceptionally well machined. They are exceptional rifles. And especially the, what I mean by that is especially the actual dynamics of the round. The .22 caliber round is not a very powerful round, and when it comes out of the barrel has to be constricting enough on the round so that all of the gas pressure pushes the round out. And what I've found is with the Henry and with the Ruger 1022, you will get the maximum range, the maximum velocity from that .22 caliber round. I have found that the Rock Island Armory .22 caliber lever action here, you're not getting as good a performance from the round as I would like. Okay, so essentially, it's a good rifle for plinking because you've got magazine fed and it's lever action, so you get the performance thing. So anyways, it's a good rifle. I would recommend it. It's inexpensive. The rounds are inexpensive and it's magazine fed. So you can go plinking with this thing all day long. Spend $20, okay? Now the Ruger 1022 is probably the finest rifle built in America. It's just an amazing rifle. This is what you'll find. This is the Ruger 1022 rifle in its form. You'll see this in hardware stores and stores, any kind of sporting store. You'll find the Ruger 1022. It's a semi-automatic recoil operated, magazine fed rifle. Really great. It's a 22 caliber. So like I said, $20, you can go shooting all day long. It's not going to damage your pocketbook, okay? This is not the kind of assault rifle that, you know, an AR-15 or M16 is. This is a rifle that is specifically bought by people who just like to go out plinking, okay? Now, it comes in many styles. You'll see this, some really sexy styles, some really interesting. It's like, you know, it's a lot of variations. It's all the same Ruger 1022 rifle, just, you know, various kind of, you got stainless steel, you got blue, you got wood, you got composite, you got all the variations, okay? So it's really a good rifle to have, and like I said, it doesn't cost much money. It's very accurate, very reliable, great rifle. I would recommend buying this rifle. If you want a rifle that you can go out with and have fun plinking, this is the rifle for you, okay? It's a great rifle. And you can dress it up. Like I said, this is a composite stock here, and you got a scope. And I've never found that I needed a scope for a 22 caliber. The iron sights were always good enough for me because, I mean, this thing it's a 22 caliber. It's not going to reach out far enough to where you need a scope. The iron sights are perfectly fine for the 22. Maybe what I might do is get a red dot. If you put a red dot on this, it'll probably improve your accuracy and, you know, make it a little bit better. But yeah, I would say, yeah, this is an example of the kinds of things you could do with a Ruger 1022, and you know why it's such a nice and versatile rifle, okay? And this here, this is the bull barrel form of it. And the bull barrel is just a heavier barrel. And what the heavier barrel does is it prevents the rifle recoil from having an effect on what a rifle marksman would call dope. Okay, your dope, whenever you're shooting your rifle, your dope is your consistency. A long time ago, they talked about this one rifleman who shot a target 5 times and only made 1 hole. And they say, hey, you shot the target once, and you only hit, you shot 5 times, you only hit the target once. And so the rifleman went and dug 5 rounds out of the same hole. And so the people were looking at it going, wow, that's something else. And that's what consistency is, what a marksman will call dope. And the bull barrel is what helps your consistency. It helps with a more consistent dope, all right? And you can see the Ruger 1022 comes with a bull barrel, which is really nice, really great. It helps, you know, with your consistency. Now it also comes with a lever action. This is a bolt action. The lever action is the one where it's like, you know, it's got the loop and you pull down and pull back up. This is the bolt action where you lift up on that thing and pull back and you push forward. And this is also a bull barrel. This is a kind of rifle that is meant for marksmanship, for competition. And most competitions throughout the world are either BB gun, or, you know, a pellet gun, BB gun, or a 22 caliber rifle like this, okay? So whenever you get one of these rifles, you are getting an exceptional rifle. This is the Ruger 1022, and it's the bolt action 1022 with a bull barrel, and it is specifically made for marksmanship competition, okay? It's an exceptional rifle. Everybody should own a Ruger 1022, all right? Now, this one right here demonstrates exactly how far you can go to change the stock. You know, you can customize the stock. This is a Ruger 1022 rifle, okay? It's just like this one, which is just like this one, and it's, okay, you can obviously tell the person who made this is absolutely in love with this rifle. Anyone who has a rifle like this is in love with this rifle, okay? Now, my rifles, I love my rifles, but I'm not in love with my rifles. I've given each one of my rifles a name, generally speaking. Well, each name is a girl's name. And it's something I learned when I was in the Marine Corps. If you give your rifle a girl's name, you're not going to leave it on the battlefield. But this is the kind of rifle that you will not find some maniac doing, a shooting with. You're not going to find people. This is the kind of rifle a person's not going to pull this out and go around shooting into a public place, because this person loves the rifle too much to tarnish its reputation. Okay, so. Yeah, all these rifles, these pictures were brought to you by the Second Amendment, which is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay, that's the Second Amendment. We love the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is a great amendment. It's one of my favorite amendments. Okay, so now I'm getting towards the end of the thing here. Thank you for. I don't know if you've turned off or not, but anyways, getting towards the end of the show now. So this is the 10 things. You guys send me to Washington, D.C. I'm going to work on these things. Removing $5 trillion from the national debt. Propose the 28th Amendment for transparency and financial incentives. Secure America's digital infrastructure by requiring PLCs be built domestically. Tuberculosis and polio screening for all migrants, as well as food workers, migrants that go to the food working industry. They'll get checked for polio and TB. The 5-pillar blueprint to empower local governments. That's an important thing. Protecting our law enforcement through a reasonable operational space act. Requiring early measles vaccination. Very important thing. Measles is the most important thing you can get vaccinated against. In the American Talent First Act to ensure American workers are prioritized over, for American jobs. The immunotherapy for cancer research, that's something that's very important. We have that kind of thing going on in Oregon right now. Like I've said before, the whole job of the job of the representative in Washington, D.C. is to secure federal funding for state objectives, okay? The federal government wants to fund cancer research. The federal government wants to fund cancer research that uses the human immune system in order to fight cancer. And so, since we're doing that in Oregon, I want to expand that. I want Oregon to, not just be taking part in it. I want Oregon to be first place, #1 in the world with immunotherapy cancer research. Okay, I want us to be #1. I want, when people talk about using the human immune system to fight cancer, that they're talking about Oregon. Okay, that's what I want. That's the kind of thing that I'm planning on doing whenever I get there. And in-person voting. In-person voting, extremely important. I'm going to talk about that in probably in another episode. We had a person stop by, the Republicans, the Yamhill Valley Republicans. We have meetings over at this one place, and this guy stopped by and he talked about how mail-in voting and early voting is actually, a fertile breeding ground for malfeasance. I mean, you can have people stuffing ballot boxes, early and creating ballots and like that. And as it turns out, mail-in ballots and early voting, those things, they may seem really convenient, but they could allow the system to get rigged, which we don't want a rigged election system in America. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to do is make a national standard, or one of the things I'm going to push for is a national standard for voting. Voting should take place on the same day. Everybody in America should vote on the same day. at the same place. The ID has to be shown, a photo ID. You can't vote if you don't have a photo ID, and it should be in-person voting. It's inconvenient, but mail-in voting is, it allows for the possibility that there could be some kind of corruption in the voting system. And the way this guy was framing it, it looks really legitimate. In fact, I probably should have put this guy's website on here. I'll do it next week. We'll talk about in-person voting and its importance. Okay, so anyways, so yeah, Make America Great Again. That's the MAGA movement. Now, make Oregon's 6th congressional district America's greatest congressional district, and that's Mosk Dag. It doesn't roll off the tongue like MAGA does, but I mean, this is my objective. I want to make Oregon's 6th congressional district America's greatest congressional district, okay? And, well, you can see I'm on YouTube, and this is kind of a flyer thing, so you got the website and the YouTube thing. I don't know. Anyways, and there I am again, same guy, beer and the cigar, jacket. I'm out there by McMiniman's Hotel and Restaurant. It's a really nice little place. So I am Tom Timbrooks, and I am running for the 6th Congressional District, the House of Representatives, where I will represent Oregon's 6th Congressional District in the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. I hope you vote for me, and thank you very much for your time, and take care.